All right. I'm Jesse Noyes, a VP of marketing over here at Tebra, and I've got Jeff Hillman. And Aimee, you both did amazing jobs on the webinars. We had some follow-up that we wanted to kind of dive into a little bit here. Something we didn't get into as much detail, I think, in that conversation, as great as it was. I just had a couple things I wanted to chat with you both about. We did a quick poll at the beginning of the webinar where we ask folks, where's kind of the biggest interest for you right now? Like, what's the most pressing concern for you right now? Is it AI and the rise of AI? Is it cybersecurity? Or is it compliance? And I thought what was interesting is that we got a pretty close to neck race between AI and compliance. AI was number one by like 2 votes, and then it was compliance shortly thereafter. And then cybersecurity is way down the list by comparison. Obviously, I think if we had asked that question during like the Change Healthcare debacle, maybe people would have a different thing pressing on their mind there. From the client side, from things you're hearing in the marketplace, why AI and compliance are so neck and neck right now? Because compliance is obviously as old as the tale is time. AI is very new, but why those two and not cybersecurity?
Yeah, listen, I think that whenever something is, wherever there's a shiny object, people are going to look at it. And AI is definitely a shiny object in the room right now. And so to me, it was no surprise that took the lead. When it comes to cybersecurity being at the bottom, I tend to think that partially it had to do with how the questions are asked and how the topics were addressed. The one piece that really wasn't talked about too much is that a lot of us, most of us, we're not running our own softwares, we're not building. And there is a level of control that we don't have, right? So we rely a lot on our vendors to boost a lot of our cybersecurity, and a lot of that does sit in the tech owner's hands. So for those who build, cybersecurity is a substantially greater concern. And for those of us who are on like the consumer side, even if we're on the cutting edge consumer side, though we may have cybersecurity in place for our scope of control where things are out of our control with the tech developers, that's there. That's part of why that came that way. Everyone is interested in AI. Everybody wishes they knew how to attack it, how to approach it. There's a lot of ambiguity and a lot of questions out there.
And I think there's a couple other very, short and sweet points as well. I would make is compliance is something we have to do. We've all been hearing about it for a long time. AI has been coming around, and it's the promise of, oh, this can make me more efficient, more effective, more whatever. Cybersecurity is that, well, it's never going to happen to me. There's still, I think, is a little bit, and like you said, during the Change Healthcare debacle, we all were paying more attention, and we all made sure, oh, yep, make sure your staff knows not to click on an email, make sure all that stuff. But it is
Yeah.
something that it's easy to get a little complacent on. And so I really think that we tend to focus on and prioritize the things that impact us every single day. And to Jeff's point, because I don't host any of my own software, I don't have servers, I don't have all of that stuff. And so I have a sense of needing to be aware of cybersecurity and follow those things like phishing, making sure that's taken care of. But it's not as big of a lift for me to make sure that my cybersecurity for my team is in place.
What's interesting too about that though, Aimee, is you brought us some really good tips, and the amount of effort that you need to put in on cybersecurity is actually pretty low in terms of, does it completely secure you from ever being attacked?
And
No,
nothing does. But
nothing
again, I
can.
think I think the point, that I make over and over is have a plan, make a best effort, make an effort to, have compliance plans, have security plans, have those things documented. So if the unfortunate event occurs that somehow somebody on your team's passwords get, taken or whatever it is, you at least have that proof that you made an effort, you made your best effort. Nothing is ever going to prevent it 100%, but that's going to go along.
It goes hand in hand too with what's happening with AI. Because as AI gets smarter and people learn how to use it, including people who have nefarious things
Yes.
in mind, cybersecurity becomes even more pressing. And so, you mentioned in that webinar, just those basic courses on like how to recognize a phishing attempt and things like that, right? So AI is going to make the thieves way better
More
at this.
powerful.
And so your staff being able to recognize the difference, taking the moment to pause,
Hmm.
right? I want to learn how to be a power user of AI. I probably need to dedicate some hours every week to really be good at this stuff. If I want to have my staff be decent at recognizing a phishing email, they probably need like an hour once every like,
Quarter.
so like you're 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And so as this stuff gets better, like they go kind of hand in hand. Worthy of note, may not feel as pressing, but the actual requirement from you to be better and to be in a better place, particularly as this gets more sophisticated, is relatively low. So you might want to think about from a risk reward
Mhm.
ratio, it's probably worth spending some time. And I'm going to actually use this pivot. We talked a bit in there about the differences between automation and AI, right? And do most practice owners, office managers, practice managers, billing company, teams, do they really know the difference between automation and AI? So well, how can I spot the difference if I'm, not an expert in this place?
A lot of people do not. And that's by design. In some cases, there are a lot of vendors who literally they just take whatever product, service, feature they had, figured out what to name it, and
That takes longer
then
than you think, being in
I know.
marketing.
But it's no, but it again, it is just automation. And I think, probably the easiest way to determine is it automation or AI is it all comes down to the teaching, the learning, the programming. Does that tool have the ability to make adjustments to what it does and the not based on the information that comes in? Or is there a programmer saying, we now know that this insurance company wants this modifier, not that modifier? That's one of the most common areas that I've seen is they're using it as denial prevention and all of this stuff. Well, the reality is there's some programmer who had to put a rule in somewhere and tell the system to stop that claim. It's not true AI unless the system actually, from claims coming through and saying, oh, it looks like we need to modify this. And Jeff, you're a big AI guy and can probably speak to that. Did I botch that or did I explain that pretty well?
I think AI is such a bad phrase right now. I think it used to have a meaning, and I think it's been really diluted over the last few years with the general usage of the phrase in everyday talk. The science fiction AI clearly is not any part of anybody's conversation, and agentic AI is certainly not there yet for our industry, and decision making and machine learning and all these pieces that go into what we talk about as AI. Mostly what we have in billing is automation. That's what we really have. I don't really see a lot of decision making being made. I don't see a lot of machine learning being done. There are certainly ideas out there, but there's nothing on the market readily available. Maybe somebody has built their own, but as far and wide as I can look, I don't see anything marketable at this point. It's coming, and we should all keep our eye out for it and be ready to jump in, but it's not there yet.
I want to make a real quick point. In these discussions, both last week and, as we're talking about this, I can't help but think it feels very much like we are in the early 2000s where we were with EHRs and EMRs, and it was all everybody was talking about.
Mhm.
But what we have now versus what we had in 2000, 2003 is completely different. And I feel like because of the nature of AI, because of the nature of technology, we are expanding faster and we're moving faster. So it's not going to be 20 years from now when we get to the point where, of course, everybody has this little AI bot that does everything for them in the practice. Maybe it's 10 years.
Yeah, and I think to your point, should people even necessarily prize one over the other? If I'm looking at billing software and I'm saying, I've been told to look, I'm hearing all about AI. I'm going to go to a vendor and ask them about AI. Like, well, if the AI solution doesn't improve your workflow, right? If automation is going to do the job perfectly well or even better than potentially some AI that hasn't been time tested yet, like, are you advising folks think about what you need done and the value you're looking to get, not necessarily whether the solution is an AI or an automated feature. How do we think about the value over how the technology works?
I like that statement. I think the big thing is understanding each individual company's workflows and sitting there and asking yourself, is this something that my company is going to be benefited by? And if it's not, it doesn't matter. And for the vast number of people who are on our webinar, they're not using automation even. The truth is you've got to get comfortable doing some automation and not just doing it at a high level and integrating it into your team, but training your team how to become bot trainers, training your team to say, I've been a biller for 20 years, but now my job is to train this little robot. And there's going to be some of that. It's going to be hard to jump into like step 3 if you never started at step 1. Now,
Mm.
again, there are limitations to what can be done, but it's always my recommendation to start somewhere. And even if it's small, start, because the process of understanding how these automation tools work is almost as important as that, that you pick one at all. I think you could do something in the charges, the scrubbing, the reporting side of it, the posting side of it, the patient community, whatever the heck you want to do, just pick one. Because if you know how it works, then you can integrate with other ones as you go. But if you wait for too long, you're just not going to have the company mindset to adapt fast enough. And it's going to be tougher.
It's a great point. And right now in the market, what I'm seeing, I'm curious what you're seeing, is kind of two sets of uh, adoption by the vendors of AI and building of these solutions for healthcare practices. Not just billing, but clinical solutions, marketing solutions, patient experience, payments, all these different areas where you have a number of vendors who have been creating EHR platforms, billing platforms for a long time. You've talked about it, Aimee, like starting, in the 2000s and up till now, and they're rapidly building out feature sets that are AI enabled or use AI at some level. And then you have a number of like newer companies that are building point solutions. So maybe you're startups, right? And they're rapidly getting funding to the tune of like hundreds of millions of dollars to basically be like a scribe, right? You see those coming along as well. And you're starting with a single kind of feature or feature set, and then trying to integrate across all these different platforms. Practices or billing companies that are looking at these types of offerings, what the pros and cons of either one might be. Should I be looking at a platform and that I've been using or that's been in the market for a while and you lean into their AI feature sets that are coming along? Or should I get the point solution and see if I can make it work with my other tools? What advice would you give?
All right. So when people ask, I advise them to find a system that has an open back end. In the end, the systems are not like the PM systems are not developing so quickly that you're going to be able to rely on them without other point solutions. I mean, I use Tebra for a lot of our accounts, and right now, if you were to look at any single one of my accounts, it looks like a Frankenstein's monster with the number of things that are plugged into its neck. I mean, it's utterly just a mishmash. But it's because Tebra has the ability to let me do that. It lets me customize what I want to do, and it lets me plug them in and plug them out, and I don't have to do any, really closed, prescribed methodology. And it's allowed me to say, okay, I'm going to add this tool in on these 5 accounts, but you know what? This specialty doesn't go very well with that kind of tool, so I'm not going to add it there. And, there's a great handbook that I've been able to hand to my vendors and say, hey, here's the Tebra user manual. Go ahead and plug yourself in and get going. But there are other softwares that we use who don't get a shout out, but their back end is closed, and we're totally reliant on their tech roadmap. And sometimes it falls behind, or the whole roadmap is features we don't care about. So to me, it's about, again, it's about what's right for your business, what's right for your practice, and make sure that whatever you have doesn't limit you from customizing things that you might need to do.
Agreed. would, mimic a lot of what Jeff said. I don't take clients from certain software. I literally just say, no, we don't work with that particular product. And some of them are the number ones in the industry, but for those reasons, we are at their mercy. And so I think, going back to my kind of analogy of we're at the early stages of the EHR kind of phase, we're in the early stages of AI too. And I mean, this even goes back to when we went from paper to electronic claims. We go through these cycles in the industry, and you've got those little add-ons, the bolt-ons that, you're referring to, that get lots and lots of money, and they're going to come in because everybody salivates at how much opportunity is available in the healthcare industry. They come from other industries and they go, oh my God, there's no adoption here. It's, there's money to be made and people are giving them money. But that doesn't mean they know healthcare. They know how to function in healthcare, like the vendors who have built their platforms like Tebra and some of the others for years and years and years and years. And so, I used to see this when I sold PM software for a couple of other brands. Once you have a mature product that does what you need to do clinically and what you need to do to get paid, they kept just trying to throw on, well, we've got to add a feature because otherwise, how do we justify, the price? Well, sometimes you don't need to add the features. Until now, we're starting to see some of those things. We're starting to see, can either automation or AI be added into that existing platform? Great. If the vendor offers it and it's your known and trusted vendor, great, embrace it. If they don't offer something that you want, go find it as a temporary solution, maybe until they do. And I'd say that's probably the one caution I would have too, is make sure if you're getting a bolt-on or something that's going to integrate with your existing platform, that you don't get sucked into it and not have a way to exit that if your vendor does come up with something that's comparable. Make sure that your data and everything gets pushed back into whatever system is going to be sort of your mainframe, your main host there. So that's kind of how I approach it. And the other thing I will say, Jesse, is the marketing guy that you are, you'll love this one. Don't pick a change software or make your decision on which platform you're going to choose because they checked all the little boxes on the AI stuff. Do they really? Like, this is where it comes back to, is it true AI or are they just renaming something that they've got?
No, I that did make me happy. I mean, I will say, both great points. One of the things we talk about at Tebra, actually, we talk about AI and automation, both of them. The way we frame it internally is AI and automation where it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes back to what you were both talking about in terms of where the market's at, and the young kind of upstart that are coming into healthcare, right? The difference is, for a brand that's been in the same market, whether it's healthcare or any market, for a long period of time, is they do care because that's now how they think about the world. They only think about those types of customers. We only think about private practices. We don't think about big folks. We don't think about things outside of healthcare. If you're a new entrant and you're just like, hey, we're finding some traction here, so now let's go figure it out. Like, to your point, like they probably will care over time, but right now they probably don't care deeply yet. Where we think about it is like, yeah, we're going to employ automation and the latest AI where it makes the most sense for our customers, where it adds the most value, not necessarily just to say we did it, right? So it's a really great point. I appreciate both of you talking to this. This has been fantastic follow-up conversation, really great webinar. Love talking to both of you. Wish I could do it every week. So thank you, Aimee. Thank you, Jeff, for
Of course.
spending so much time with us.